Good evening and welcome to the Italian Impact Podcast. I am your host, Steve Stefano Mancini, and as always, I'd like to thank my listeners for coming back. I would like to thank the listeners from all over the world who are tuning in. Again, I am still awed as to how people in places like Singapore and China and Russia and throughout Europe and even in Africa, Brazil, Canada, Australia, the UK, how you are all finding me, I don't know. But keep finding me because I love it. And also remember, as a humble little podcast, I am appreciative of listeners. I'm trying to spread, a little positivity focused on the Italian culture, but not limited to the Italian culture. So I'm always willing to, have good guests on that have a good, positive, uplifting story. So if you are interested in being a guest, if you think you know someone that would make a great guest, please feel free to email me at questions@ItalianImpactWeekly.com. Again, that's questions@ItalianImpactWeekly.com. Love reading the emails. Keep them coming. Also, I want to thank the folks that have been viewing Fedeltà, Soldier Prisoner. That is the documentary we filmed last year. Wonderful story. Tells recounts the story of the 1,250 Italian prisoners that were kept at Letterkenny Army Depot outside of Chambersburg, PA. Why do I keep bringing this up? One, because I want your 48 cents. And two, because this is the 80th year anniversary of the end of World War II, which is also just happens to be the 80th anniversary of the building of the chapel itself. And again, a lot of family members are coming back this September 11th to be exact. And I would love to have a lot of folks go out there and, hear their stories, talk to them. If you haven't seen the chapel, see the chapel. You can also see the original base commander's house, see some of the remnants of the prisoner of war camp, some of the buildings that are still left. Obviously a lot of it's gone, but there are some other buildings that are still left. So I'd love for you to go out there and support history by visiting this area, especially, when the prisoners' families are going to be there in September, or if not, make it up there in the summer. Again, I know Paul and David and the guys would love to have you out there to see the chapel. It's just a beautiful chapel, and it's very well maintained. So kudos to the folks out there in Franklin County for doing such a wonderful job in maintaining that chapel. And lastly, as you all know, I have been foolish enough to accept the position as honorary consulate of Pittsburgh. Now, I sort of jokingly say that, but then for the folks that are seeing my inbox and phone calls, not really jokingly saying that. So I want to say that I am available if you have anything that you have questions on, with the exception of citizenship. To be honest with you, I'm getting a lot of calls, and I mean a lot of calls on citizenship. The citizenship rules have changed with the Italian government. So a lot of folks are looking to be dual citizens. Those rules have changed. I know that there are going to be some meetings in the near future for some of the organizations to kind of go over what that means. I also know that there is a push from different Italian organizations. I know Basil Russo has been doing a wonderful job of kind of spearheading an effort to really get a unified front for folks to kind of reach out to the Italian government and say, hey, maybe reconsider this, maybe change it, whatever, because there are a lot of folks that want to get their dual citizenship. It is not an easy process. It takes a long time. There are folks that are in the middle of the process, and now the rules have changed. So what does that mean? So you can go out to the consulate's website and read specifically what the rules are and how they've changed. But stay tuned, because there's going to be some events where we can maybe give a little more guidance on what our plans are to reach back out to the Italian government. Okay, having gotten all of the administrivia out of the way, I would like to get started with a wonderful guest. And him and I met, I want to say it was back in the Christmas dinner, right?
That's correct.
Back in,
Yep.
Was it? I got to figure out one, because there's one. I actually had a Christmas dinner in January, so I got to make sure it was the December one.
It was the December one.
I got it. Because you can never tell anymore, Too many Christmas dinners, they had to push it into January. I thought,
Right.
well, then why don't you just call it like a New Year's dinner? Who cares? All right, well, anyways, I got a wonderful guest today, Tony Colega. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right, I appreciate that. Appreciate that enthusiasm to be here. I know you actually want to.
Yes.
But no, you and I have been talking about this for a little while, and we're going to talk about specifically why you're here, because I think it's a really good effort, and there's a lot going on, and it sort of ties into the overall theme of the show, which is to help promote the culture. And you do that through different events. So we'll talk about that in a second. But before we get there, I think a lot of folks always want to say, so who is this Tony guy and why is he on your show? So let's kind of start there. Where are you from? Tell me a little bit about yourself and about your family.
Well, I grew up in Beachview, and after I got married, moved to Scott Township. Okay, I have one son, Nick. He's at IUP right now in his sophomore year. He's studying business. Okay, I'm actually a pharmacist, and I went to Duquesne University, and I'm kind of sort of semi-retired right now, we say, but I'm still out there practicing.
I cannot envision myself being retired and doing nothing. I don't know. I feel like I'd go crazy. I mean, did you try to retire and do nothing?
No.
You said I'm not doing it.
No. Matter of fact, I have a friend who's in his 20s, and when I tell him all the things that I've done, like over the weekend, he's like, "There's something wrong with this picture here," you know.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? But I believe we have a purpose in life, and I don't believe. I think as long as we're alive, and there's a balance. I mean, there's a point in your life where you say, "Look, I'm going to rest. I'm going to do less." But I don't. I'm not the one that says I'm just going to sit every day on the beach. I would be bored after a while. So I couldn't do it. So when you retire, what do you do to? You say you kind of keep. Obviously, I'm assuming you just do part-time pharmacy work.
Yeah, I work for pharmacy staffing agencies, so whenever they call me for an assignment, I go do it.
What was the one big thing you were looking forward to when you retired?
Just
obviously not working.
being able. Well, I can't tell you how many DVDs I have in the basement. You know, it's like now I can sit down and watch these things.
For our younger listeners, back in the 90s and early 2000s, they had these things called You know, it's funny because remember when that was the new technology, which you had Blu-ray before that, you had VHS, you had a hot minute, you had beta. And when you think now that all of that external media is gone, it is all online. It's crazy how fast we've changed.
Yeah. You know, funny story, when I bought my last car, which was like 4 years ago, you couldn't find a car with a CD player, you know? And, you know, the salesman is trying to tell me, well, you want me to show you how to use Spotify? It's like, no, I don't know how to use Spotify. I got these.
I spent thousands of dollars on CDs. I want to play them.
Exactly. Because that's the main place. I listen to them in the car, you know. So, it's just.
Well, I never threw my records away when I was a kid.
Wise move.
I tell you what I did throw away a lot of. My tapes. My cassette tapes. Because that is one thing that I'm like, you know, I'm probably not going to put a cassette tape in. Records are more nostalgic than cassette tapes. I still do have all my CDs.
Yeah, sure.
And I still have CDs. I still have the original. I got it probably back in 88, 87, 88. It's like it's the first CD I got. It was the Def Leppard Hysteria album.
Okay.
I don't know if you're a follower. It's a rock group, you know.
Anyways, I know who that is.
That's what I got to realize now, the people that are listening to that, they look like us. But, I mean, I still have that CD.
Oh, sure. I have my first CD, too.
Right.
Sgt. Pepper.
Interesting. Because that would, you know. But, so, you know, with that being said, though, I would also argue that a lot of folks that retire, and it's funny, you know, we belong to, I'm sure like you, and we're going to talk about this, but you and I belong to different groups. And when we're working, we don't have the time to volunteer. We need more volunteers. Most of the time, I'm working. And then what happens when you retire? Now you're too old to do much volunteering. But that's not you though. You're very active in the groups in the lodges.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about the United Lodge here in a second. But obviously, besides the fact that your Italian last name gives it away, the culture must mean something to you. And here's why I say that. There are a lot of people with, quote, Italian last names that don't do anything in the community, don't promote the culture, don't engage in any way, shape, or form. It's just my name.
Yeah.
With someone like you and you know myself, I'd like to think, you know, we're trying to promote the culture because it's something deeper to us. When did the culture be more than just your last name?
Yeah, it's interesting you should mention that because when I was growing up, we really didn't do anything special, you know. It wasn't until after I got married that I got involved with ISDA, and because before, you know, of course, every summer, you would walk through the neighborhood, you'd see the poster in the window of the business of Italian Day at Kennywood. Right. Okay, that was my only really contact with something Italian that was done every year. Okay, and we were always told to avoid Kennywood on that day because it's the busiest day of the year. You don't want to go.
Everybody's Italian.
Yeah,
on that
you don't
day.
want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever gone to, Kennywood on Italian Day back in the day, if somebody calls Tony, 15 people turn around. You know what I mean?
The other Tony, 15 different people turn around.
Right. So it wasn't like I said. We had pasta every Sunday, and yes, we played Italian music at home. But that was pretty much it. We really didn't get involved in any organizations or promote the thing. But then after I got married and I found out about ISDA and people that I knew were members, and then we joined, and now. It's such a big, important thing because, you don't want to lose that heritage, okay? You want the children not to forget where we came from, okay? And, the things that we do, we want carried on, the traditions,
Do you think that generation that we talk about, when we were, like I was born in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. And so for me, my dad was not the off-the-boat generation. They were the generation that was, you will assimilate. Mm-hmm. It was the generation before that. Mm-hmm. So you have this break where not only is it not, promoted in that generation, but you lose something. Mm-hmm. And the generation before doesn't think, they're not trying to pass it on. They're just living. Hey, we when I was in Italy, we ate this. So when I come to America, I eat this because this is what I eat. Mm-hmm. They're not thinking like, I need to pass on. I'm just using food as example. I need to pass on that this is what we eat because they're not thinking that. They're just living. Do you think that is what is the drive now behind a lot of these organizations in preserving? Because of that, there was no conscious effort. And in fact, there was more of an effort to get rid of the name than like now. So do you think a lot of these groups are trying to, for a lack of, recover what was lost?
I would think so, because you've seen it, and I've seen it, where you have Americanized Italian names, okay? Right. Sometimes done intentionally because it was, quote, too Italian. Okay, if you can believe such a thing, and now it's something we want to hang on to. Okay, it's not something that we want to change so that we can blend in. In most cases, some people have a reason. If you're an actor or something, and it's a long, complicated name to put on the marquee. Yeah, I understand, but still, the person could say, well, no, I'm not changing my name. I want that name on the marquee. That's my grandfather's name, So yeah, I think we want to preserve what we have and not lose it.
Now, I'm going to come right back after this little quick commercial break, and I'm going to ask you a couple of hard questions, and then we're going to jump into the lodge. So, folks, please stick around. We'll be right back.
Ciao, Chrissy. Your Italian got so much better. Brava.
Grazie. It's because I learned the best way possible.
How so?
Well, I learned that with apps, grammar books, and even YouTube videos, I could only get so far. I had to immerse myself. I noticed I did best when I was in Italy visiting family. That's where my level really soared.
And wow, did it work?
Thanks. I became much more confident, fast. That's why I created Footsteps Through Time. It's an Italian language experience. You don't just take Italian classes, you immerse yourself in a real Italian village. With lots of fun activities and excursions, it's life-changing.
I see. So, no more boring grammar, impersonal apps, just real conversations, real culture, and delicious food, of course.
Exactly. I'm so excited about this. Learn Italian by actually becoming part of the local community for a week and living it. So if you've been dreaming of Italy and the language, check out Footsteps Through Time in Italy.com. Book now and join the experience.
Andiamo!
Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. For all of your plumbing needs, be sure to try Palucci Plumbing. Nick and the team have decades of experience and will get you back up and running. For more information, call Palucci Plumbing at 412-782-5050. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support. And we want to thank La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei, the only nonprofit school in Pittsburgh endorsed by the Italian Consulate. If you're interested in learning Italian or have your children being immersed in the Italian culture and language, be sure to give them a call at 412-404-7070. And that's La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei. We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074. All right, welcome back. All right, Tony, here's the big question. If I said to you, what does it mean to be Italian as an American? How would you answer that?
I would say, well, we use the phrase Italian American,
Right.
okay, which means, yes, my background is Italian, but I'm also an American citizen, okay? So I have both of those things going on at the same time, okay? I love my country. I also love and appreciate the country that my grandparents came from, okay? So I'm doing things in America to support this country, to this government, but I'm also concerned when negative things happen in Italy or to Italians in this country, okay? Because that's part of my heritage, and that's something that I should be concerned about. That's something that every Italian should be concerned about.
Now, the interesting point to that, and the reason I asked that question is it kind of comes back to the new rule change. And I had a good conversation. I'm going to actually try and get these guys on the show, but we were having a good conversation, and they're both born in Italy, and they've come over here not too many years ago, let's say 10-ish years ago, and they work here in the States. Both of them maintain their Italian citizenship because their goal is eventually they're going to go back. They're just working for a while, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you consider somebody Italian who's, say, 3 or 4 generations removed? And they said, no, not at all. Now, the reason I say that is that was one of the changes to the Italian government put out with the citizenship was it said you can't claim Italian citizenship anymore through your great-grandparents, and either one of your parents or one of your grandparents has to have been born in Italy because they feel the farther away you get, the more removed from the culture you are. Do you believe that? Do you believe that there is a gap in what we think, quote, being Italian means and what Italian really means?
There shouldn't be a gap because, that your grandparents and your great-grandparents are always going to be part of your heritage.
Sure.
And, just because it's, might be great-grandparents that you never really met face-to-face, that's one of the reasons why you're here. Okay,
that's right.
So if it wouldn't have been for them, you wouldn't have your grandparents, you wouldn't have your father, your mother, and so. So yeah, we don't want that erased.
No, not only do I agree with that, but I think that once again reaffirms the why do I care about my great grandparents from Italy? Who cares? Because it is it's a ripple effect of decisions over time that lead you to be where you are at, and it's not that you have to necessarily dwell on that, but you ought to have an understanding of, so why did they leave? And what did they come here with? And and why did they make these choices? And wow, because those choices were ultimately about making the next generation better. And in theory, their choices were about making the next generation better. And we have it as good as we have it because of people that came before us. And and you don't want to forget that sacrifice. Otherwise, I'll revert back to the documentary I filmed. It was one of the comments made by one of the family members. She actually makes the comment, I feel like maybe, she says, if my father was alive, he would think that a lot of their sacrifices were in vain because we weren't learning the lessons of the past. Now, different context, but it's the same thing. We don't learn from the past to understand now so that we can make better decisions for tomorrow. So with that being said, at some point in your life, you made a conscious effort, now we're going to jump into the lodge here, that you said, you know what, you may not have been told, all right, Tony, this is what it means to be an Italian. We're going to eat. Like, they didn't consciously do that, but it was just things that they did. They just happened to have brought with them from the old country. So you, though, made a conscious effort to become part of an organization. Let's talk about the ISDA. Why the ISDA?
Well, that, to me, at the time when I discovered it, was, the Italian Sons and Daughters of America. This is the organization that put on Italian Day at Kennywood. So this must be the Italian organization. Now, later I found out there's other ones, okay. But that, to me, was the leading one in the area. That's the organization I want to join. That's the organization whose activities I want to participate in, okay, because they're the big one.
Right. Now, let's talk about the lodge specifically. First of all, how long have you been with ISDA?
I'm thinking since maybe 1992 or 3, something like that.
I hope they're not still charging you dues. It's going to be some kind of over 25 years discount. But let's talk about the United Lodge. So what is the United Lodge? Because you were telling me this is a little different than the other one. So go ahead.
Yes. So I'm the vice president of the United Lodges of Pittsburgh. And the United Lodges of Pittsburgh is not one of the official lodges of ISDA. A lot of the lodges of ISDA were smaller, didn't have a lot of members, and had pretty much no social events. And the lodge of ISDA that I belong to is the Carducci Lodge, number 66. Okay. And we were one of those smaller lodges that didn't really do a whole lot. So one of the members of the Carducci Lodge, Greg Falvo, who eventually became president of the Carducci Lodge, he had this idea. What if we got a whole bunch of the smaller lodges and put them together as kind of like an umbrella and created an umbrella organization and did social events, and then the smaller lodges who never could afford or have enough people involved to do social events could finally have something to do. Okay, so if you look at our logo of the United Lodges, it's an umbrella. Because that was Greg's idea. He kept calling it an umbrella organization. So that's why there's that umbrella in there. So when we originally started out, we had 4 lodges of ISDA as members of the United Lodges. Okay, Carducci, Everglade, Concordia, and St. Jude. Okay, Concordia has since folded into another lodge, so now it's just the 3. Okay, so the first thing that we did was we decided to have a Sunday supper, okay? And the idea behind this was we were going to have dinners at various restaurants around the Pittsburgh area. And because there's a lot of great Italian restaurants in the Pittsburgh area.
There still are.
Oh,
I
yes,
agree.
okay. And some people may have never heard of some of them, may have never been to some of them. So the one thing we wanted to do was get people out to restaurants they may have never been to before. Okay. And then people could say, well, why should we go with the United Lodges when I can go to this restaurant any day of the week by myself? Well, the deal that we have is if you go to one of our Sunday suppers, after you've gone to 5 of them, your 6th dinner is half off. Okay, so there's a little bit of a benefit there. Okay. So so far we've had 3 of these, and we were supposed to have number 4 in March of 2020, and you know what happened there.
I've heard something about that time frame.
Yeah. So it took us 5 years to get back on track. So this year we're finally having, the 4th edition, of the Sunday Supper. We're having it on Sunday, May the 4th, okay, at Gianna Villa's restaurant in Castle Shannon. And so we do have, I think, last I checked, about 25 people signed up for this thing, so it's going to be good. The other thing that we do every year, and this was our president, Greg Falvo, has a cottage in the Laurel Highlands. And we were just throwing ideas around, and I came up with the name, why don't we have Bocce in the Mountains, okay? And we were going to meet at his house, in his cottage in the Laurel Highlands. We would have like Italian meats and cheeses and play bocce. But then it became a little bit of a logistical nightmare, with serving alcohol and this and the other thing. So instead of having it in his cottage, we decided to have it at the Stone Villa Winery in Acme, PA, which is in the Laurel Highlands, not far from his cottage. And What I envisioned with the United Lodges was we would have the Sunday suppers all the time, and then we would have another event that would change from time to time. So the bocce in the mountains at the winery, when I first conceived that was going to be a one and done thing. Okay, we were going to try other things in other years. Well, after we had the first one and it was so successful,
got to have a second one.
People are coming up to me, oh, you got to let us know when we have this next year. So now we can't stop. This is one of the big events every year that people always expect.
And it makes the newspaper.
It makes the newspaper. The United Lodges is expected now to have bocce in the mountains. So we
see that's a tradition though.
Yes,
that's what it's about right there. Mm-hmm. You do something kind of organically, mm-hmm. and it's such a good time. You say, we got to do this again, and now it becomes like this is fun.
Yeah,
and now people are planning around that event. Mm-hmm. And now, God willing, 20 years from now, people will say, "I remember the first time I came here. My kids were this big. Now they're playing."
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I
mm-hmm.
think that's what these organizations are about.
Mm-hmm.
They're about memories. They're about camaraderie. They're about unifying under a common banner. In this case, happens to be cultural.
Mm-hmm.
There are other organizations that have similar drives for different reasons, whether it's a veterans group or Rotaries, whatever. But it's the same principle though, that you could bring people together in a good way, a positive way, have fun. And I'll see you next time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like that. Mm-hmm. Now, how many years have you gone doing the bocce in the mountains?
Oh, boy. I believe the last one was the 5th one, I think. So this would be number 6 coming up. We always do it in September.
Okay.
And when we started out, see, this Stone Villa Winery would always have their own I think they call it a fall festival every year. And normally it's on the 3rd Sunday of September. And we originally started out latching on to their event, having ours at the same time they had theirs, because they had different
probably
events.
All set up for a nice event, right?
But then that drew so many people, we were drawing so many people, we said maybe we should move it to a week before or a week after theirs. And that worked out really well because then we had the bocce court all to ourselves, and it wasn't as crowded. We still had the entertainment. The winery has live entertainment every Sunday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's that's a plus.
So they still have people going there whether you're there or not. But
right.
Yeah, that is a nice way to bring in more people.
Right, and
that's nice.
And we've gone on such. We've gotten on such nice terms with the winery is they're expecting that phone call from me every year.
Because you're hooked now.
Yeah, because we at one time we had brought in I think it was 80 people.
Wow.
So yeah, we had to cut that down a little bit.
Now, are you sending this out to all the lodges? So I'm the new president of the Ambassador Lodge, and we're an example of one of those, and I'm going to say it, dying lodges.
Right.
We don't do anything. We maybe do something once a year, maybe twice. It's kind of like, a meeting at a restaurant just to have something. And then I think we would do something in, maybe it was Ferragosto or something in September. And that was like it. And, you could see the crowd dwindling. Mm-hmm. And I'm the president now. I took over about maybe 5 months ago. And I'm going to be honest, I have to mail letters to the people in the lodge. And I don't think people understand why that's not good. Because we're all going to be there. We're all going to get up there in age. I get it. But the problem is you can't adjust anything now. So let's say I mail a letter out in February. I say, listen, we're going to meet the 2nd week of March. Now something happens. We can't meet. What do? I got to mail letters out again. Mm-hmm. And it's just not sustainable. It's not tenable to do that like that. Mm-hmm. So I've got about 20 people that I can email. And then the rest I have to mail letters, and we haven't collected dues in so long. I don't even know if they're still alive. I'm not trying to be like disrespectful or mean. Yeah. I mean, some of these people have been doing this for decades, and they were very old. They were in homes a long time ago. You have no idea of their status, mm-hmm. and I'll bet and it's not just ISD. I was also with the Knights of Columbus. I still am. Same thing. The lodges, they get older, they shrink. They literally die off. Mm-hmm. It's gone. You either merge or you're just gone. Mm-hmm. So these events are important to that. But Are you opening it up to all lodges, or I mean, because I haven't seen anything. I think I'm actually kind of interested to push this to my lodge.
Oh, absolutely. The events that United Lodges of Pittsburgh has are not just for those 3 lodges that belong to ULP. That's for the entire.
Yeah, all the lodges.
Yeah, anybody can go. Matter of fact, my dentist, who is not Italian and not a member of any of the lodges, he comes to the bocce every year. He's always there.
That's good.
So anybody.
Emergency dental work because I fell on a bocce ball. We got a dentist.
There you go. There's actually 2 dentists that come to that thing every year, so you're in good shape. But yeah, anybody can come to any of our events. Okay, the Sunday suppers, the bocce, or whatever we might end up doing. All
right, now, folks want to find out more. Where can they go?
Well, if you get the La Nostra Voce newspaper every month, you can look, and the events are in there. In this month's issue on page 24, it has all the information about the Italian Supper Club. If you don't have the paper and you still want to go, you can call and make a reservation with Donna. You can call 412-855-3827 or 412-833-4294. Now, I do say in the article that seating is limited because the restaurant room only holds so many people. So if you're thinking of going, and the deadline for the reservations, by the way, is April 22nd. So we're getting somewhat close to that. So if you're thinking of going, it would be better to make the reservation sooner rather than
And this is for the restaurant?
This is for the restaurant.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right, now I'll put those numbers down in the description so folks, you can go down there, give them a call. You got a couple of weeks, so please, if you're interested, give them a call, make your reservations, enjoy the group. What are your final thoughts? Don't take any wooden nickels.
Well, the Italian culture is such a big part of our lives. Let's not let it go. Okay.
Amen.
Let's keep it forefront in our minds, and keep doing things that our ancestors used to do. Okay. It's not bad to do new things, right, but let's not forget about the traditions, and let's keep them going as well.
Amen. Again, you keep your traditions alive, you keep that person alive inside of you, and that's a big difference between dwelling to the point where you're sad versus saying, I remember that, and then carrying it forward and creating those new memories and just continue to pass it along. Tony, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And you didn't think it was going to be a long enough show. I told you. We
we filled it.
We do it. Fantastic. All right, folks, again, I want to thank you for tuning in. If you've missed any previous episodes, you can go out to ItalianImpactWeekly.com. Or you can go out to Podbean. I'm also on all the major streaming services, just in case you're looking to catch something you haven't listened to before. Not sure where you're listening to this, but again, I want to thank you. And a kind of a final thought. If you are enjoying this, I would appreciate you sharing this with folks that might enjoy it as well. This is about promoting the culture, but it's also promoting positivity. We have a very dark world, and there's so much negativity that I think we all need a break from the noise and to just sit back and hear good stories and just have a little bit of fun and relax. Keep sharing this. Appreciate you tuning in. And again, for folks all over the world, I cannot thank you enough that you found me and that you continue to listen to me. I am so appreciative of that. Reach out to me. Questions at ItalianImpactWeekly.com. Would love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful and blessed week.